permanent loss, maybe of your sight, permanent loss of different parts of the body, and will lead to disability, or in extreme cases might even lead to death. So you find out therefore that the pathogens are also of different categories. They may be bacteria, they may be viruses, okay? There may be some other microorganisms, which I will not want to go into the details at this time, as it will be beyond the scope of this training. So you have such pathogens, for example, the bacteria, which include the common ones, like the bacteria causing the bacteria causing such a disease like cholera, that is Vibrio cholerae, or there can be viruses such as the virus causing common cold, or even flu, such as the influenza virus, or the type that's responsible for COVID-19, and so on and so forth. So you find out that as they can be mild, they can also be deadly. Those are pathogens. And you can come in contact with all of these either at home or even outside, in buses, in places of public concerns, and so on and so forth. Now, against that, let's talk about toxins. Toxins are actually toxic products of metabolism of different organisms, which can be either microbial in origin or may not even be microbial, but the toxins are capable of affecting the physiology and well-being of humans, animals, and other organisms around. Now, both pathogens and toxins can also come from animals that are found around us, or that they may also be transmitted either from the animals to human beings or from the human beings to animals. Such pathogens, we refer to them more as zoonotic in nature. When you say zoonotic, it is from animal to animal, or from human to animal, or from humans to other animals. So they may be zoonotic in nature. Now you find out that most of the dangerous diseases, deadly diseases that we have, are zoonotic. If you look at COVID-19, which is the most recent epidemic, in fact, pandemic that we have, and I hope to also break this down further to us. It is either one of the pandemic, most recent pandemic we have, it's caused by a virus. It's caused by a virus. That's why we call it a coronavirus disease. And that's why COVID came from. And then the 19 there shows that the coronavirus disease actually broke out in 2019. And that's why we call it COVID-19. Secondly, you find out that Ebola was another deadly disease that more than 70% of those that contracted Ebola actually died. So, and of course, Nigeria had its fair share of Ebola, just as we did in the case of COVID-19. But God was so good to us that even when Ebola came to Nigeria, Nigeria was quick to be able to track it and bring it down. So those are viruses, you find out that they are all, but the two examples I've raised are exchanged between animals and humans, zoonotic in nature, therefore. And there are many other examples like that. Now, what do I mean by pandemic and epidemic? Because whereas COVID-19 was pandemic, Ebola virus disease was epidemic. It is pandemic when it affects most of the countries and continents of the world. So that is pandemic. It is epidemic when it affects a large section of a country and it does not continue to spread and spread. Then another lower category is when you just call it an outbreak. An outbreak is a very small proportion compared to either epidemic or pandemic. Thank you very much. I wish to now state here that what biosafety aims at doing is to contain these pathogens so that they do not spread and continue to cause infection. You will notice that in the slide which I display here, it is talking about laboratory biosafety. It is because this slide intended to focus on intended to focus on biosafety as it applies to laboratory situation. Biosafety, however, is not restricted to the laboratory. Just like we talked about pathogens being available in the field. So we can talk about biosafety in the field. We can talk about biosafety in the community. And don't forget that for a laboratory to be somewhere, there can be a leakage out of that laboratory into the surrounding community. So therefore, biosafety does not stop with the laboratory. Now, I also want to state this categorically, that in terms of specific examples, I don't know where each and every one of you actually are based right now, but if you are the type that is based in Lagos, I want you to cast your mind to Yaba. Yaba is a cosmopolitan motor park, major bus stop, even with a beautiful flyover now. One of the hallmarks of Yaba is a Presbyterian church. Okay. Just after Jibo bus stop, if you are coming from Ojota side. Now, just opposite the Presbyterian church, you have Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. That institute has more than 6 laboratories where work goes on in respect of some of these pathogens that cause deadly diseases. So those laboratories are categorized either as level 1, biosafety level 2, level 3, or even level 4. But there is no level 4 in that place in Yaba. Now, why I'm bringing this up is that you see that that particular Institute of Medical Research has these laboratories within its compound. But the whole of Yaba surrounds this institute. So it means that whereas the institute contains the pathogens that they are working with, there's possibility of leakage. When, for example, COVID-19 broke out, it is on record that it broke out in Wuhan, in China. But there's a theory that said somebody who was working on the virus and the virus mutated, took a sample of the virus out of the laboratory in Wuhan. And then that particular strain of the virus infected some animals in Kenya, in China. Now, you know that Chinese, they consume different types of animals. Some of these animals, they even eat them alive. Worms of different types. So the theory states that the COVID-19 that had mutated, that was brought out of that laboratory, was the one that spread quickly, killed many people, and was carried by travelers all over the world. All right. So based on this, therefore, you find out that biosafety is very, very important. Now, if there was a case of only one person smuggling out a virus from a laboratory, and then the whole world had to answer for it, ladies and gentlemen, what therefore will become the effect if it was just free for all from Wuhan to everybody? It appears that the whole world will have come to an end due to operation of COVID-19. So it is based on this that I want you to visualize how important biosafety is. So now let's look at an outlook for biosecurity. Biosecurity, in terms of its definition, actually is about protection, control, and accountability for valuable biological materials within laboratories in order to prevent their unauthorized access, loss, theft, misuse, diversion, or intentional release. Ladies and gentlemen, this is also another very important thing for us to consider, as the protection, control, and accountability for valuable biological materials. I want you to take note of that. Within laboratories or anywhere that pathogens can be encountered, or that where they are handled, in order to prevent their unauthorized access, loss, theft, misuse, or intentional diversion. Having said this, I said, for example, let's talk about valuable biological material. Any material that is biological in origin, which is capable of life, that is, whether it can, even if it's a plant, if it can germinate, if it has the cells, if it has tissues that are capable of affecting any other organism, they become valuable. They become of interest to us in this case. Now, the second thing is that I spoke about unauthorized access. Unauthorized access actually refers to some people who are not supposed, for example, to be in a location where there's work going on biological materials, and then they come there, they can do and undo without you having an eye or suspicion on them. Now, we also spoke about diversion or intentional release. Have you heard about biological warfare? In the case of biological warfare, what happens is that some people use these pathogens, these dangerous biological disease agents, they use them as the weapon of war. So that when they are released, they can cause different diseases, which may be responsible for death in very high proportion against their enemies. And there are very many examples of this where it has been used. The fear we have, for example, as biosafety and biosecurity experts in Nigeria, is that these terrorists, these bandits, and such other groups who are agitating for one thing or another within the Nigerian space have the potential of also using biological agents for their warfare. And that is why we have to go all around, talk to ourselves, and talk to others to be aware of the possibility of all of this. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is biosafety, this is biosecurity for us. And having said that, I want to talk about biorisk management. But before I go on to that, I have stated some examples relating to biosafety, some examples relating to biosecurity. But at this time, I want to ask you, can you think of one example of a biosafety measure which you are familiar with? You may unmute yourself and give us the response. Can you please unmute yourself at random and let us know your response to the first question? What is one example of a biosafety measure? And then another person can give us what is one example of a biosecurity measure. We have only 1 minute to think through.
Okay, sir. Sir, can quarantine be taken as a biosafety measure when imported plants
Can we have a
that may be
response, please?
hello, sir. Can quarantine be taken as biosafety measure? That's keeping
Hello, class.
infested plants from entering the nation without being
Please unmute yourself.
approved.
Because I cannot really hear you. Oya Kilome Esther.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
Okay,
asked the
the
question,
question
sir.
is, I
That
said, can you give an example of
that
a safety measure?
yes. Okay, sir. Plant quarantine, sir. To plant
Okay.
quarantine to protect
Oh, good.
pathogens from foreign country into our
Thank you
nation.
very much. She said plant
Yes, sir.
quarantine so that if there is any disease coming into the country from the importation of a plant material, then we can quarantine it.
Yes, sir.
It could also be the
Yes, sir.
same thing in respect of an animal
Okay.
coming
Yes,
into
sir.
the country. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
We have another example, this time, example of a biosecurity measure. Okay,
Biosecurity measure, the example is,
okay.
uh,
Uh,
hello, can you hear
Davis
me?
Ugowe,
Yes, yes, sir.
are you able
Uh,
to ask
those are my
us
understand.
to respond to us?
I think,
Davis
from my
Ugowe.
understanding, biosecurity measure is to prevent, uh, I think, intentional or unintentional release of harmful agents, like
Davis
post.
Ugowe, can you please respond? Give us an example of a biosecurity measure.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I said a biosecurity measure is, example is controlling
Okay,
access
I will give an
to a
example of a
specific.
biosecurity measure. For
Can you hear me,
example,
sir?
what we call access control, which is like when you have gates in your house, isn't it? The gate in your house prevents people, except you authorize them to enter your house, or the street gate that you put on your street, or the door that you put install in your room. That is access control. As you have it there, so it also happens in various places where pathogens are handled. Okay, so now we can go on because you find out that both biosafety and biosecurity measures, they can be different, but there is an overlap. In the next slide that I'm going to share, therefore, which you have here, you have, for example, biosafety, you can have engineering controls, you can have good laboratory work practices, you can have personal protective equipment, you can have practices and procedures. Then in biosecurity, you can have doors with locks. Some of the doors even have password or PIN. Then some have card readers. Some you need to use your fingers. Your fingerprints is what will allow you in. And then there are cameras, for example, CCTV cameras. And then, yes, information security is also important, not allow everybody to know what goes on within your premises. Then having security guards, fences, bars on windows, magnetic locks, etc., etc. But if you look at it in between, there are some of those things that are common to both biosafety and biosecurity. That is, for example, the same access control, for example, personnel management, for example, proper decontamination and disposal of waste materials. These are common to both biosafety and biosecurity. All right. So I said I want to talk about biorisk management. And so we can quickly go on that bit now. What do you understand by biorisk? Biorisk is simply talking about risks that are associated with biological materials. Risk that are associated with biological materials. So you find out that in that word, you have a combination of bio, which is from biological, and then risk, which is from risk. So the biological side of that biorisk refers to risk, therefore, that are concerned with biosafety and biosecurity. Biosafety and biosecurity. That's why we call it biorisk. So I think the next thing for us to find out is what do we or how do you identify biorisk? I will leave you with this in the next 2 minutes. Also look at what are some things you can do to manage these risks. And also, how will you know that your risk management is working? And that it will continue to work. These three are posters. This is an exercise that I want us to all address our minds to. Okay? So here we go. In about the next 2 minutes, I will come back and ask us for responses. Permit me, therefore, that when I come back, I'm coming to call some specific participants in the house. So therefore, let your mind be busy on this on these questions. 2 minutes, please. Okay, so can you still hear me, please?
We are hearing you now, sir.
Can you still hear me, class?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir. I can hear you.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, class. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Please,
We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
may I request
I can hear you now, sir.
Emanuela Patrick? I see that you have raised up your hand.
I'm
Emanuela Patrick,
Henry
can you
Adjime.
hear me?
Hello? Can you hear me, sir? Hello, sir.
So if you
We
can
can
hear
hear you.
me,
Yes, I can hear you.
Emanuela Patrick, can you please
Yes, sir, I can hear you, sir.
respond to the first question? How do you identify biorisk?
I think Biorisk can be
Emanuela
ident-
Patrick, I hope you are there and that you can
Yes,
hear
sir.
me.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Oh no.
Can you hear me, sir? Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Okay.
Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Okay. Emanuela Patrick,
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Oh, can you hear me, sir? Oh, network is so bad.
hello, Emanuela Patrick. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, sir.
How do
Sir,
you think
I
you
feel
can
that
identify biorisks?
I feel that biorisk can be identified by its effects on humans, livestock, and I think living organisms.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your response. Okay, um, let me go to Sonny Zubeiru. Sonny Zubeiru, if you can hear me, I see that you have raised your hand. Please tell us what are some things you can do to manage those risks. Can you hear me, please? Sonny Zubeiru, Omeza. No, Sonny Zubeiru, please. I hope you can hear me. Yes, Sonny Zubeiru. Can you hear me, please? Hello?
Hello, hazard control. Complete elimination of the hazard control. Oh my God.
Okay, Sonny Zubeiru, can you hear me? Okay. What about Henry Adisheme? Henry Adisheme, you have raised your hand. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes,
All
I'm
right.
hearing you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir,
Please,
sir,
I
like
want you, what are some things you can do to manage these biorisks?
the things I can do to manage biology is a sensitization. Like now, where I work
Sensitization?
in where I work in MPDC as a third-party security officer in a
Okay,
laboratory department. Like
okay,
now, the staff normally use they purchase carton of ice fish, they install it in the same fridge, they install block storage
Oh, good.
materials.
All
And I
right.
look at that as a biorisk.
Okay.
In a laboratory environment, even you know you're supposed to eat in a laboratory environment. It's very risky.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very risky. So those are the biorisk that I saw. And the control is to minimize those things
Okay.
to avoid contamination.
Oh, great.
Right?
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that feedback.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank
And
you,
I
sir.
believe the class also appreciate you. Okay. So I can go ahead and also ask if there's a volunteer that can tell us something. How do you know that that thing you can do to minimize those boundaries are working? Don't bother yourself if you cannot know, because it is not supposed to be part of the modules that I want to teach in this particular training. However, we need to know that it is important that what Henry Adisheme has just told us is working. Because if it's not working, then we are still exposed to that biosafety or that biosecurity risk. So we must ensure, therefore, that it is working. How we want to know that it's not working is simply that the danger still persists. For example, some people might still continue to fall sick. For example, we might still be finding out that some consumables in the laboratory are missing, or that we cannot account for some materials in the laboratory. Thank you very much. Let me give you one simple example. At a certain time in one of our laboratories, we discovered that while we were taking stock, there were microscopes, there were boxes. The microscope come in boxes. Now, unfortunately, those boxes, we found out that almost 15 of those boxes were empty. We looked for the microscope that was supposed to be in them, we couldn't find. In other words, some people open the microscope box, bring it out, and they take it away. That is a case of biosecurity. All right, because the microscope slide is an equipment that you use in the laboratory to enlarge the images of the pathogens or organisms so that you can see them well, be able to identify them and work with them. So when you begin to see that there is loss of such device or there is theft of such device, it's a biosecurity risk. Are you with me? Now, apart from that, we now took stock of everything. We knew how many microscopes were missing. And then we had to change the lock in the storeroom of the equipment. Then we had to carry out. Uh-oh. Okay. So we had to carry out Okay, I'm back now. I think my signals just returned. So please, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Yes, sir, we can
apologies.
hear you.
Okay, apologies for that glitch. And it came just as we were nearing the end of this session. All right. Are you able to see my screen, please?
What was
Hello?
the question, sir?
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we may continue, and I thank the two respondents for their responses to the question about how to identify boundaries and how to manage the risk. And their responses are quite okay. Now, the next thing that I want us to actually do is to also ask ourselves what then is biorisk management. It is our ability to contain all risks that are concerned with pathogens and their toxins. Pathogens and their toxins. So based on this, I will want to just go on the second, on the next outline. And that outline is about the AMP. That is assessment, mitigation, and performance. So if you look at the question that I asked in this slide, talking about risk, how do you identify risk? What is actually simply talking about is assessment. If you look at number 2, what are some things you can do to manage this risk? Ladies and gentlemen, that is a question on mitigation. Mitigation. What did I call the first one? How do you identify boundaries? It is assessment. Because you can only identify the boundaries by assessing the situation. What are the hazards that you have around? What are the possible unwanted events that can happen with respect to the hazard you have identified? The way it is talking about what are some things you can do to manage this risk. It's talking about what are the mitigation steps that you can do in order to reduce the risk, or in the worst case scenario, in order to uh, eliminate the risk. So the third question, it says, how do you know that your risk management is working? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a question on performance. So if this is a question on performance, you remember we have spoken about assessment. That is A. The second one, we spoke about mitigation. That is M. And the third one, we mentioned performance. That is P. What we have just done is to bring the AMP model into focus. The AMP model, we have just brought it into focus. Assessment, mitigation, and performance. Now, this is a globally recognized model for managing biorisks. So it is how you can manage the biorisks as they are related to the various biorisk situations. Now, before I call it a day, I will actually want you to realize that the process of assessment is a process by which you identify the hazard and you evaluate the risks that are associated with biological agents and toxins. In doing that, you will need to take into account how adequate the existing controls are, if any, and how can you decide whether or not the risks are acceptable. This is the thing about biorisk assessment. You can take it to the next level. Biorisk mitigation refers to actions and control measures that are put into place to reduce or eliminate the risks that are associated with biological agents and toxins. Now, this mitigation and the third one, performance, our training in this course does not cover them. We will therefore limit ourselves to this slide that is shown there on biorisk assessment, talking about the process of identifying the hazard and evaluating the risks that are associated with biological agents. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where I would like to stop today, if you permit. But before then, I would like to ask you, is there any question? I can take about 1 or 2 questions before we close for today. It has been a long day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Hello,
Thanks a
sir.
lot. Yes, I'm with you
Thank
now.
you, sir. This, the first one is that I need to appreciate you for the lecture, sir.
Thank you very
And
much.
I need to appeal. Like most of all, like I myself, I got the information of this class late. I logging in late, around 30 minutes after 6. If you can help us and do a little revision concerning the beginning.
Okay,
And secondly, I want to ask what are the limitation of those risks, sir?
okay.
Mm.
Mitigation of risk, did you say?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I can answer those 2 questions very quickly. In the first way, uh, sorry that you couldn't join us immediately, but you did not
Okay,
lose
sir.
much because initially we had technical hitch that did not make us to start exactly at 5 o'clock, which we plan to start. So you probably did not lose as much as you had thought you lost. But I am very happy that your participation was very good, even though you came in late. What we did, probably before you joined us, was simply to have a quick rundown through the outline. And then we went through the key messages for this course. We mentioned that the first 2 messages, biosafety, biosecurity, biorisk, and biorisk management system, are common terms that are related and they support one another. We also mentioned the AMP, which is Assessment, Mitigation, and Performance, that it is a simple but powerful model for managing biorisk. Then we also called attention to CWA 15793, that it is a comprehensive framework for managing biorisk, and it is developed through international collaboration. After that, we went to define biosafety and biosecurity. You will still find this out later if you are able to access course materials for this training. But this is what it is. Containment principles, including technologies and practices that are employed to prevent unintentional exposure of pathogens. I want you to take note of that unintentional exposure. We dwelled on it very well because biosafety is about unintentional exposure. Then we went ahead and also defined biosecurity, which are, so we spoke about protection, control, and accountability of valuable biological materials. We said also that it is within laboratories in order to prevent their unauthorized access, loss, theft, misuse, diversion, or intentional release. All right. So those are the definitions of biosafety and biosecurity. Then we went on to talk about biosafety measure and biosecurity measure. We asked for examples, and very well-meaning members of the class volunteered their responses. Then we spoke about biosafety and biosecurity, and where we have common grounds that the two of them are actually involved in an interaction. We use this Venn diagram that you have on the screen now in order to illustrate this. Then from there, we went to ask what is biorisk. Then we define biorisk as risks that are associated with biological material. Okay, so we went further. I don't know where you actually came into meet us, but I know that you were among those people who also uh, volunteer responses in terms of identifying boundaries, uh, and what are some things we can do to manage this risk, and how do you know that your risk, uh, uh, those things you can do to manage it are working. So we said those was actually referred to assessment, mitigation, and performance. That is the AMP model. Okay, so having said that, I also want to say that usually when we come tomorrow, as we do usually, we will do a quick recap of this in case there are people also who were not able to join us in good time, so that we will all be on the same page as we start also tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, my professor.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you permit, therefore, we can close. If by the time you come tomorrow, there are questions you have on what we have covered today, then if there are questions you need to ask when we come again tomorrow, then that will be fine. And tomorrow on this presentation, we will still be able to answer. I want to thank you for your audience. If you were not here, I will probably not stay online. I will have gone to take a rest for the day. But now I feel more fulfilled. Your participation in the class is the value that has been added to my day. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Right.
Well,
Thank you.
I hope Dr. Chooks is still there. Is Dr. Chooks account still there? I guess uh, his internet also has a hitch. So I tried of therefore this suggestion. Thank you very much. Let's come together again at 5 o'clock. You are blessed. Good night.
No, wait, hell.